In this video, I'm going to talk about break-even analysis. Okay, before we start with today's lesson, the first thing that you need to know is you need to know what is a break-even point all about. Okay, so basically a break-even point is a point where your revenue minus your expenses equals to 0. So basically in the break-even point, your profit will equals to 0. Okay, so at this point, the business does not make any profit. At the same time, they do not make any loss. So at the break-even point, they make 0 profit. Okay, so this also can be viewed as the point where the business stops making a loss and starts making a profit. So basically in the break-even analysis, you can answer questions like how many products do I need to sell in order to break even? So how many products do I need to sell in order to start making a profit? Okay, so this is what break-even analysis is all about. Okay, so basically the lower your break-even point, this is very important, the lower your break-even point, the lower the risk of losing money. Okay, so normally when we are comparing break-even point, we would prefer a break-even point which is much more lesser. Okay, now in this video I'm going to teach you how to calculate the break-even point. Okay, how to calculate the break-even point for one single product. Okay, so sometimes when a company sells a single product, when they sell only one product in their company, you need to calculate the break-even point. So sometimes the question will ask you, how much is the break-even point in units? Okay, that means how many products you need to sell in order to break even. Okay, if they ask you for the break-even point in units, your formula is supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be fixed expenses divided by selling price minus your variable expenses per unit. Okay, so fixed expenses minus selling price per unit minus variable expense per unit. So selling price minus variable expenses will actually equals to contribution margin per unit. So basically the formula is very simple. It's fixed expense divided by contribution margin per unit. Okay, and contribution margin per unit, this figure over here, this will equals to selling price minus variable expense. Okay, so if I rearrange the formula, it will be fixed expenses divided by contribution margin per unit. Okay, so if the question asks for the break-even sales in dollars, okay, if they ask the break-even point in dollars, this is what you need to do. There are two formulas here. Number one, you can use fixed expense divide by contribution margin ratio. Okay, and normally contribution margin ratio will be given in question, or you need to find it out. It will be given in your question. Okay, and your fixed expense also will be given in your question. Okay, if not, if the question didn't give you any contribution margin ratio, you have to use your break-even point in units times by your selling price. So there are two formulas here. The first one, which is fixed expense divided by contribution margin ratio. If they don't give you the information, you can always use your break-even point in units times by the selling price. Okay, so there are two formulas for break-even sales in dollars. And lastly, if the question asks you, how much do I need to sell in order to meet a target profit? So this target profit here is not break-even point. This target profit is not a break-even point. Okay, so in order to meet a target profit, so if I want to achieve a certain profit, how much of products do I need to sell? This is what they ask you to calculate. So if this is the case, you would take your fixed expense plus your target profit divided by sales minus variable expenses. This is how you do it.